Hello, welcome to DeKalb Talks Tourism. Today we have the great pleasure of having Chris Clark, the President, CEO of the Georgia Chamber, the big Georgia Chamber, and we're excited to have you on the show.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
Well, Chris, I've known you for quite a few years, but I probably really don't know your background. So tell everybody a little bit about your background, where you came from, things like that.
Sure. Well, I grew up in a small town in South Georgia called Fitzgerald, Georgia. Town of around 12,000 folks. Went to college at Georgia Southern and then at Georgia College for my graduate degree. I started in the chamber world, in 1997. So that seems a long time ago now. Chamber economic development. And then in 2002, I went to work for Governor Perdue and had 3 different roles with him, including economic development, where I did tourism for a while. Global commerce, ran all the state's international offices, traveled the world, selling the state of Georgia. And then I was head of the Georgia Environmental Finance Authority and then DNR. And so obviously at DNR, from a tourism standpoint,
Yes.
That's really where I had a very kind of a new approach, I think, to thinking about the impact that tourism has from the state parks, our wildlife management areas. And then since 2010, I've been president of the Georgia Chamber.
So how many members does the Georgia Chamber have now?
So we have a little over 50,000 members in every single county in the state of Georgia, and all of our local chambers are members, and most of our binational chambers are members as well.
So you got to be a powerhouse for the Southeast.
I mean, when you look at membership, we're one of the largest chambers in the country, and we're by far the largest business organization, obviously, in the state of Georgia. But, yeah, I mean, Florida's chamber is a little bit bigger than us, but they're a lot bigger state, too.
Yeah, Florida's hard to compare.
It is.
So what's some of the things you did? Because I didn't realize you had as much tourism background as you do. What's some of the really cool things you did there?
Well, it's interesting. When I started out in economic development, it was a little town called Hawkinsville in South Georgia, which is a wonderful, wonderful little town. And I felt like I split my time half between recruiting companies and building an industrial park and doing, I think, what people thought was traditional economic development. But the other side of the house was, how do you get more tourism in our community? How do you get more people to come here? How do you get more people to live, work, play, and pray here? So it was a lot around downtown improvement. It was building a couple of parks, maximizing the impact of the river that we had. And then when I was working for the state of Georgia, it's funny, I went in and I kind of did a little bit of everything for a while. I helped the film department. I helped the tourism department. I was at the Capitol lobbying for the Department for Economic Development. And then for a few weeks, I think I was kind of an interim head of tourism.
Wow.
And I remember the boss called me one day, the commissioner, and said, "Hey, I want to talk to you tomorrow about a role." I said, "Okay." And I went home and I told my wife, I said, "I'm going to be Deputy Commissioner of Tourism tomorrow." And she goes, "Oh, well, that's great." She goes, "But what do you know about tourism?" I said, "Well, I don't know, but I can learn and I know about Georgia." And so I went in the next day fully expecting to be Deputy Commissioner of Tourism, and I became Deputy Commissioner of Global Commerce instead. And so, but still, I think had some bleed over into how we promote the state, how we tell that story. And then obviously at DNR, I mean, I really went into DNR with the mindset that if people can touch, engage, go outside, go to our state parks, go to our wildlife management area, fish and hunt, they'll be better stewards, they'll care more about the outdoors, and they'll be more engaged, and we'll be able to generate, more economic prosperity for the state of Georgia. And so, that's a little bit. And then obviously here at the Chamber, we're going to support all things, tourism, sports, the movie industry, every single sector.
So you actually have a separate committee on the film and entertainment industry.
We have a separate entity within the chamber called the Georgia Screen Entertainment Coalition that really has been instrumental in both protecting the tax credit as well as working on workforce development issues, selling Georgia. We're in a difficult place right now, the film industry. Most of that activity has gone overseas. We've seen a huge decline here in the state of Georgia in the last year and a half. And so our team has really been working with the governor to make sure that we're still promoting film as a destination. We've got a group going to L.A. in a few weeks to meet with producers and to tell the story and just really to remind people that we're open for business and we want that activity, that economic activity here.
Now, do you work with Georgia Entertainment?
They have been a partner. We've partnered with them on several things in the past. And then obviously, our focus is how do we help the Department of Economic Development, right? Whatever the commissioner needs, whatever the deputy commissioner needs, then we're going to be there to support them at the Capitol, in Washington, or anywhere in the world.
Well, I think tourism and film is so crucial to Georgia, but what's interesting is with the build-out that we do have, and with the unfortunate decline of the mega movies, now you're still getting TV and all, but it's really opened up a new opportunity for a lot of the studios because they are big, empty boxes, that we now are working with Shadowbox and Assembly at using space for sporting events. So we have huge international boxing that's in DeKalb, but we only have space for 2 rings. We're literally talking to Shadowbox about having multiple rings and bringing people in. For boxing, we just recently had tennis, or have tennis, in Shadowbox in one of their studios. And they're even working out, because part of our dilemma is you can't get into studios without credentials. So we're actually working on a plan where if you're a visitor, because sporting events is visitation. So the visitors can go to one location, get credentialed, and get shuttled in. So they're thinking creatively on how to generate more revenue for themselves with the big box, so that we have opportunities with sports that DeKalb currently doesn't have the space for. So the unfortunateness of the downturn has a fortunate player on this concept of thinking out of the box and doing other things with that space.
And I think that's the right approach. When we talk to studio heads all over, it's really about content creation, right? And so you're seeing a lot of the studios do what Tyler Perry's been doing forever, which is let's own our own intellectual property. Let's figure it out. And then sports is a huge part of that. I think it's one of the reasons that you're seeing USA Soccer move to Fayette County, right next door to Trilith. That's not by accident. I love what you guys are doing here. And I think there's a lot of opportunity, and not just in traditional sports, but in video gaming and esports as well. That's perfectly built for the studios. Another area I think is an opportunity, both from the tourism standpoint and the studio standpoint. You have a lot of big concerts that have to go somewhere and practice for months before they go. And Louisiana has been really good at getting them there. A lot of big names go there and prepare. And so now that we've got this additional studio space, there's another opportunity out there as well. But
that's something I hadn't thought about. That's pretty neat.
Yeah, but I think at the end of the day, how can we create content? Right? And that's where I think, particularly from a workforce development standpoint long term, we need young men and women, James, that understand creativity, that it's in their blood. That's why we've got to fund the arts. We've got to make sure that they understand that so that they can go out and create their own movies, right? I love, again, I use Trilith as an example of following that Tyler Perry model of doing their own productions, right? Let's own this from writing all the way to distribution. That's going to provide more jobs, and I think more quality jobs for Georgians in the long run.
Well, it's interesting. I don't know if you know we're doing this, but we're actually kind of following what you're saying. We have 3 film productions going on that we're taking part of. We have a documentary on boxing with Sugarbert, and because the gym, Paul Murphy Gym in Doraville, is where Evander Holyfield got his start. His son is recovering from a heart issue there, and all the different aspects of boxing. We have a documentary on Buford Highway.
Cool.
Like, why and how did it become the international corridor?
Yeah.
I've always wondered that actually myself. So we're producing a documentary on that. And then we have kind of like a drama or docudrama concept that's a short 10 to 12 minutes. So it's basically heritage history based on refugee soccer in DeKalb. But it's a fictional story based on the actual refugee experiences and the culture of DeKalb dealing with soccer.
Wow.
So the nice thing with us producing this short, it's pretty much guaranteed to get into film festivals.
Yeah.
So we're going to be looking at it going to Berlin and Cannes and Toronto and Sundance and others. So we're spreading the word about DeKalb through our own content creation of these films and documentaries.
I mean, that's so innovative on your part to tackle this from a whole different perspective. It's not just an ad in a magazine,
Right.
or going to put a booth up somewhere. Let's tell our story completely different. That's great.
So then all this is planned to be done by the end of the year, 3.
Perfect.
And then we're also going to be shortening them down and putting them into like talking presentations that we can take around, just promoting the assets of DeKalb.
So here's an interesting side story. The Georgia Chamber was founded, fully incorporated by 1915, but in the late 19-teens, a group went to L.A. from Georgia on the train to try to recruit film producers of silent movies to come here. They had no success. And so they actually funded the first movie ever filmed in Georgia. And it debuted in Atlanta. And the press clippings that we found from back then said it was quite possibly the worst movie ever made. But it highlighted, all the places of Georgia and sent it around. I don't know if it got much airtime, but we were committed to this industry over 100 years ago, that we saw that there was an opportunity, but it was a storytelling opportunity as well to tell our story as a state, and that's what you're doing today, so that's exciting.
Well, we're excited that you're going to be having your own podcast studio and going out, because I see you talking at different events, and this I think has opened up a lot of new doors for us, and I know with your charisma and the backing of Georgia Chamber, you're just going to be very successful in taking all that out to the public in a different way.
I hope so. I mean, part of what we have to do, and you do it here locally, is you got to tell these stories, right? You got to tell the stories of the leaders that are in your community, that are in the state, the success. You want to inspire the next generation, and you want to highlight the stuff that we make, do, buy, sell in the state of Georgia as well. So, yeah, we've done some podcasts before, but they've been mainly around what's happening at the Capitol. Yeah. Which is fine for us political junkies like you and me, but for the general public, I think there's a bit more storytelling to be done.
So you're remodeling your office, so you're going to be moving in and having a new podcast studio and all that. So, it's a little soon, probably know exactly what you're doing next year, obviously. But what's some of the hot buttons you'd really like to tackle for next year?
Well, I think from a business standpoint, I think the most important thing that's going to happen at the state level in 2026 is we're going to elect a new governor, a new lieutenant governor, a new attorney general, a new insurance commissioner. You're going to have elections for U.S. Senate for every congressional seat in Georgia. You're going to have a huge turnover of leaders in the state. And so to make sure that all of those candidates that are running for office understand what matters to the business community. And so we have 5 pillars of our new strategic plan, workforce development, competitiveness, economic development, innovation and entrepreneurship, health and great communities, transportation and infrastructure and energy. And so to go to those elected officials and say, here's what matters. If you want Georgia to continue to grow, to continue to be prosperous in every corner, here are the policies that we want to work with you on. Whoever gets elected, doesn't matter. And so that's how we're going to spend our 2026, is telling those stories, making sure those candidates understand what's important, so that when whoever's elected comes into office in January of 2027, we're there to help. And we can keep this incredible momentum that we've gained under Governor Kemp for the last 7 years now.
Right.
We want to keep that going. And we're going into a time I think everyone can recognize, whether it's in tourism or in manufacturing, we're in a little uncertain economic territory right now, and I think we're going to be for a while. And so to make sure that we are sending the right message from the state, that we've got the right men and women in office that want to work together, to compromise, to tell the story, and to be open and friendly to business, then that's going to be our priority.
So which one of those new positions are you going to take for next year?
None of the above, ever.
You just want to be helping and pushing everything forward.
I'm here to serve. Yes, just help.
So what do you think has been your biggest initiative you've done this year? And you've had some great retreats and things like that.
So I think this year was really introducing this new strategic plan for the Chamber, Georgia 2050. And really, James, the idea behind it is a couple-fold. But when you start thinking about business investment, when you start thinking about new intersections like you're building here in DeKalb County, when you're thinking about a new hospital or a new convention center, those are 25, 50-year investments, right? And so to get business leaders and elected leaders to think further than 2 years or 4 years, to think 25 years in the future, I mean, you got to think someone that's being born today in DeKalb County, they'll barely be out of college in 25 years.
Right.
What's the workforce, what are the job opportunities going to look like for them? And so to make sure that these business leaders around the state understand that our local chambers are all thinking the same way, that we're thinking about infrastructure, we're thinking about the energy needs, we're thinking about the future of workforce. That's been our big focus this whole year, traveling the state, telling this story, just trying to get people to think a little outside of their comfort zone. And one of the things when you get up and speak to groups, sometimes you kind of get a blank look. And when you talk about 25 years in the future and you talk about artificial intelligence and autonomous driving cars, people can glaze over a little bit. But what I realized early on is when I can ask them, who here has a young child or a grandbaby, and everybody raises their hand, I said, now just add 25 years. 25 years ago, your parents or grandparents or leaders in the state made tough decisions, the right decisions to help us be as prosperous as we are today, right? We're not Alabama or Mississippi or Louisiana. We have a very different, vibrant, diversified economy, and it's not by accident. And so we've got to make those same decisions now. So that's really been our big focus for 2025.
So I know in the tourism world and the sports world, the big name out there is FIFA, FIFA World Cup.
Right.
And with your global background, I mean, what are some of your thoughts?
I'm so excited. First of all, I think the team has done a great job hosting the Club World Cup that's been here. Great turnout, incredible numbers there. But this gives us the opportunity, unlike anything we've seen since the Olympics.
Yes.
When I used to travel the world, I used to always ask business leaders or government leaders that I met with, I'd say, what do you know about Georgia? Just tell me off the top of your head. And Coca-Cola was always number one.
Right.
The Olympics were always number two. Gone with the Wind and Georgia Tech were somewhere in the top five, which was always, surprising and interesting. But that brand from the Olympics is what led this state to be such a destination for international companies. Before we did have some from international firms, without a doubt, but nothing like we have today. Hartsfield was huge back then, but nothing like it is today. The ports of Savannah and Brunswick were great, nothing like it is today. And so this gives us the opportunity not just to get the immediate impact of those visitors, but that long-term memory of the what we saw in Georgia, what we saw about DeKalb, what we visited when we were in town, but to be on all those TV screens all over the world.
Yes.
That's you can't. I don't know how you put. I'm sure you and your peers will figure out a way to put a monetary value on it, but it will be transformative long term. We just need to make sure that we're telling the right story, right? That we're doing everything as well as it can possibly done. Which, if Dan and others, the team that have been working on this, that's what they're doing.
Right.
And we've got a lot of experience with Super Bowls and World Series every now and then, and to do that well. And so, I'm really excited about that long-term impact.
Well, we're excited from the CVB standpoint because really we haven't done a lot internationally with DeKalb. But we know the world, as you said, the world is looking at Atlanta. Mm-hmm. So we've invested a lot in getting our name out for the next year and a half on doing new initiatives, WhatsApp applications. I know that just when I was traveling for business for the last couple of weeks in Europe, it was very complicated to do things. Mm-hmm. So that experience is led me into making revisions here with this organization, because if you figure we're having trouble going to England and Ireland and Scotland, they're going to have trouble coming here.
Right.
So it's opened up a new world of let's think, how do we really accommodate the international travel?
Right.
How do we market to the international travel?
Right. And what's that experience like when you come into Hartsfield? What's the experience like when I get on MARTA or in an Uber? You know, are your hoteliers prepared for international guests? Are they thinking about different languages?
Right.
Those are all things that we had to think about in 1994, 5, and 6. We got to have that same mentality this time.
So I wasn't here for any of that. I came to visit the city, but I think I was in Tuscaloosa or something, and very different. But really, again, we want to take advantage of the world looking at us.
Right.
Because we don't want to miss that opportunity to showcase Atlanta, showcase DeKalb, showcase Georgia, that we're the great place for the Southeast or for the country to be at.
You are, and DeKalb is such a diversified community. I mean, you offer so much, and a lot of communities can't say that. I mean, you can get the city, you can get the cool town vibe, you can get the record store, you can get a little bit of everything here. And it's hard to figure out how to tell all of those stories, right? But that's what you've got to do.
Yeah, and that's why we really have looked at the film initiative, the movies to tell our story. Because you're more interested in watching short clips or watching movies or documentaries or hearing real people talk about the community versus us just paid to do this.
Well, I think that's important. I think the other part of it, too, it's kind of like when you're recruiting for your workforce. You want to see people on screen or on stage that look like you, that have similar backgrounds, and DeKalb is so diverse and can tell so many different stories to so many communities, and this gives you the opportunity to do that in a really unique way.
Yeah, definitely. So if you were to look at the Georgia Chamber, what do you think is going to be you're already the biggest chamber in the South, other than maybe Florida.
Yeah.
One of the biggest chambers in the United States. I mean, that is a lot, just totally to you taking the helm. And you've been, I think, the director for about as long as I've been here. You've been here how many years?
This is 15.
Okay, so I've been here 14.
Yeah.
So what's Chris's next personal goal for the chamber?
I don't know that I think about it from a personal standpoint. It's just that, we work hard. We call it the chamber way, just to be servant leaders in what we do. How do we serve Georgia businesses? How do we serve our communities? How do we serve, organizations like yours? And we get lots of ask. There's lots of needs out there. And so as long as we can keep, I think, people focused on the future and keep elected leaders focused on problem solving, compromise, working together, and telling the right story so that people do know that we're open for business and that that we are welcoming and hospitable and they want to be here. I think if we can just continue to be great servant leaders and partners, then I'll be
happy.
I'll be happy, and that's what God's called me to do. And so, yeah, it's not any personal goal. It's how can the chamber just continue to serve.
I think that's still a personal thing. You're pushing that. It's what Chris thinks. It's how Chris operates.
That's I'm here to serve. I know that's my purpose in life, and I'm just thankful I got to pair up with an organization that is servant-hearted and has been there, for 110 years, just trying to help the state and tackling tough problems. I mean, the Georgia Chamber was right in the middle of the civil rights movement. I mean, we've been there when things have been bad and things have been good, and I think a lot of times as parties change, as politics change, it's the business community that remains the same, right? The Coca-Colas and the Home Depots and the Georgia Powers of the world, they don't go anywhere. They're here, rain or shine, to serve, and it's just a blessing to be able to serve them.
Well, we're excited you're here, and you've been here for so long. Do you have any really cool story you want to tell from your 15 years running the chamber?
Cool story. Gosh,
I love stories.
Oh, my gosh. There's probably too many for me to even think through. I mean, so much has happened at the Capitol and working since I've been here now with two different governors, seeing the transition of the state, seeing the growth in Atlanta. Maybe not a story, but I think one thing that is really telling about our state, if you go back 10 years ago and you looked at the future population of the state of Georgia, we were going to grow, right? We're going to be a destination, but most of that growth was going to be in Atlanta. Something like 65% of that growth was in Atlanta. When you look at where we are today, you see Atlanta still growing, but now all those rural communities, the Savannahs, the Macons, the Warner Robins, they're growing just as much. And so they're getting their own opportunity to recruit and to help people lift out of poverty. And, what you're seeing on the coast with Hyundai's growth and what it's doing to Savannah and that coastal region, I think that's just a great testament to the leadership of the state to think long-term and to think broader and have a bigger perspective. And so I just want to make sure we continue to have that mindset as we go through. What's good for DeKalb is good for Atlanta, which is good for Clayton, which is good for South Georgia, and vice versa.
Is there any big global initiative that you think we all just need to get together and tackle? Is there something been on your list that, like, I need partners to do this?
Well, I think, at the federal level, there's obviously a lot of discussion around how you deal with immigration. There's the tariff discussion, and you really need those issues are so big that they do need to be a partnership. They need to be compromised. They need to be bipartisan. And so we haven't had that in Georgia. I think we've been pretty good about being bipartisan on the big, tough issues, and I'm happy about that. But I think if everybody in the state would focus on making sure that our young men and women have the skills that they need to be successful 25 years from now to AI-proof their careers, then I think that means healthcare is going to be taken care of. We'll have enough small businesses to fill our downtowns. People have the skills they need to be successful. And so I guess if I had to put a finger on it, it would say to really focus on workforce development and engaging with that next generation to make sure that they had the skills they needed to be successful.
I don't know. You're hitting a point we're jumping into. We've not really been into the workforce training or getting you from high school into tourism.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm working with Chef Simone. She's actually got a organization right across the street, and we're going to put together a youth event with high school junior and seniors in the hospitality, tourism, culinary side. And we're going to do a all-day workforce symposium to bring the ability to either get employed
Mm-hmm.
in the hospitality tourism industry, which is broad. It could be,
Right.
tourism is kind of a little bit of everything,
Yeah.
or be able to go to college and go get a hospitality or park and rec degree or tourism
Mm-hmm.
degree. So we're kind of jumping into that from a bureau standpoint for the first time. We're going to have this big event in October, literally focusing on our high school students to get a job or college.
And I commend you on that. And what I would suggest to you, too, is to challenge the businesses in DeKalb. One of the big issues that we've looked at in the data, it's not so much about the degree that you get, right? You got to get something, right? We
Right.
all know that. It's the skills that you have when you come out. And so few high school students today get the opportunity to work after school or during the summer. And a lot of that is businesses' responsibility because they're not hiring an under 18-year-old. And
Right.
so what we've been asking communities all over Georgia is internships, apprenticeships, or just give the kids a chance. And there are programs out there to lower your insurance rates and to help out with, you can do waivers, all kind of things. But, if you want men and women to go into the tourism industry, you got to expose them to it while they're still in high school to say,
Directly.
here's the opportunities, here's where you go. And I talked recently, I gave a talk to all of the college career counselors in Georgia, and we talked about the fact that there are invisible jobs. There's all these careers out there that don't show up on college campus to put a booth up on career day.
Right.
Either they're too small or it's just not in their wheelhouse or they don't have the resources to do it. But there's so many more jobs that are available that those folks don't even know about. And then so how do you expect kids to know about them? And so getting them interested in high school like you're trying to do now, I think that pays dividends for the long term. But we got to make sure that they can get real skills that are valuable while they're still in high school.
Oh, totally agree.
And one of the things we have been saying as we go around the state, when you take arts funding out of public education, you're crippling the long-term creativity of those students.
Yes.
Right? That's where you're going to get the next Bill Gates or Zuckerberg or whatever, whether you like them or not. That's where the next innovator is going to come from. And you've got to make sure that we've given kids that full picture. And I get it. STEM is going to lead every job is going to have some component of it that's STEM related. But the kids are going to be successful long terms, also have humanities backgrounds and arts backgrounds so they can actually communicate what they're trying to do and the bigger picture. So, yeah, I think that's anything we can do to promote the arts, tell the story, get kids exposed earlier and earlier. I think it's going to pay off dividends for them and for our communities long term.
Well, we know that Georgia, it really prides itself on having a lot of homemade items. So, what do you think is the coolest item made in Georgia?
So that's a great question. I appreciate you asking me. We just launched a new effort called Coolest Thing Made in Georgia. It's a competition. You can actually vote right now. You can go to coolestthingmadeinga.com and vote for your favorite product. We have over 100 products that were nominated. Everything from an EV9 made by Kia to a Gulfstream to artisan drums to unique food products to videos and movies. And so you can go to gachamber.com or to Coolest Thing Made in Georgia, and you get to vote. And it's kind of like a Final Four voting. So right now we have 64 competitors. You get to vote on which one, and then they'll go to the next round, the next round, the next round, and then we'll announce the winner of the Coolest Thing Made in Georgia on August 20th at our congressional luncheon in Columbus. And then we're going to do this every year. But the hope is twofold. One, James, is to draw a spotlight to what we make, do, grow, and create in Georgia, right? So that we have some pride of that, and we shop local, and we honor that. But the other one is really to inspire the next generation of maker, doer, growers, and builders so that they know, oh, wait a minute, that's from Georgia? I want to do that in Georgia. I want to do that. And so it's really cool. The nominations have been everything from the largest companies in Georgia to literally high school students that have their own companies. And so
that's very cool.
It's so cool, and it's rewarding. And I'll tell you, we're only, I think, 48 hours into voting, and I think we've already had over 70,000 votes. And so just and we've got companies that are telling their own stories, encouraging people to vote for them. So it's really neat to see that. We all love a competition, right?
Oh, yeah.
We all love it. It's fun. And yeah, so I'd encourage you to go there and vote.
So go back. If you want to vote, so any of our listeners or viewers, they go where to see this?
Coolestthingmadeinga.com.
Coolestthingmadeinga.com.
Yep.
Vote and see where this thing goes. I think this is great.
Yeah, it's fun, and we're going to keep doing this. And I think it's just there's so much that we have here that I think there's enough stories to tell through this process for the next 20 years.
Oh, yeah, and just the first year and make it bigger and better every year.
Every year, right.
Very glad you're doing that.
Yeah, thanks. We're excited.
Okay, I know we spent a lot of time talking about workforce development, and we've been talking about high schools and development there. Are you doing any kind of new cutting-edge type involvement with the students?
So we've really been focused on middle school students, and this year we just finished hosting our first ever statewide Civics Bee for middle school students, and we hosted the finals at the Carter Center. And the winner is going to go to D.C. to represent the state of Georgia. He's a young middle schooler from Fayette County. But the idea there, and it's really came out of the U.S. Chamber, and this is in 32 states now to be in 50 states next year, just a way to get these young men and women to understand about democracy, about free enterprise, about compromise, working with people, respecting each other even when you have your differences. And we think that's so critical for the world that we live in today. And so we jumped on this. Our team worked with the U.S. Chamber's Foundation. I think we had 32 school systems in Georgia that participated this year, over 20 local chambers. And I'll be honest, that first couple around, James, I was sitting over in the corner and I was trying to answer the questions, and of their first 20 questions, I got 15 right. And a lot, and that's kind of I feel like part of it was my job, but I was looking at other adults who were sitting there with 8 right or 6 right. But to understand the Constitution, how we got here as a country, our history, the importance of democracy, I think kids lose that today. They're not getting the same civics education I think that you and I got. And so to see kids fired up for a competition, to be able to win a big check at the end of the day, to be able to go to D.C. to represent your state, we're just so excited, and we'll add more and more and more and more middle schools as we move through the next few years with this program.
Well, I think it's great because it hits, like you said, it does get them excited. They want to win a check. They just want to win.
Yeah.
They want to compete, but then they're learning history and everything without them really realizing it in a sense.
Right. And listen, these questions were not easy questions. They were difficult. And what I love is the final round, the kids actually had to think about an issue that they cared about and then stand up and present how they would work through the political process to solve that issue.
Oh, wow.
And I was sitting there as the 5 finalists came up, and the first kid talked about X, and the second kid talked about this, and the third kid, and I realized every issue that those kids care about are things that we've dealt with at the state capitol or that our partners are working on every day. And it was everything from social media to homelessness to environmental stewardship and sustainability. I mean, all things that they care about and they're passionate about in middle school. I feel like we probably saw a future governor or senator on that stage, and I think that's what you want is young men and women that are involved in the process, that care about democracy, that, if nothing else, will do their homework and go vote when they get old enough.
And so that's what we need, too.
Right.
We've got to get the younger people to go out to the polls.
Right. Amen.
To vote for whichever party, but to vote.
Yeah. I don't know that I've ever missed an election. And my son is 19, and the other day I grabbed him. I said, all right, we got to go vote. And he goes, for what? And I said, get in the car and I'll explain it to you on the way over. But, yeah, I'm not going to let him miss.
Right.
He drove back to vote back in November from college. He said, because, of course, he didn't get his early ballot. So he drove home and did it. But he's not going to miss, and I think that's so important.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Really commend you on. Is this something you started?
No, I mean this came out of the U.S. Chamber, and we saw it
enough to do it.
We saw it and said, you know what, that matters.
Yeah.
That has an impact. Let's bring that to Georgia.
Well, I think that's great.
So
glad you did that.
Thank you. Thanks. Excited about it.
So one of the things I like to do at the end of each show is ask the person, if somebody came up to you and said, what's the one or two must-see attractions or restaurants or must-do in DeKalb, what would you answer them?
Gosh, there's so much. I don't know where you'd even start, but I think if it was a newcomer, I'd obviously tell them about Stone Mountain and about the fact that you've got this incredible urban, oasis in the middle of this, urban environment. I would talk about the, downtown Decatur. To the concerts downtown, the restaurants down there. That's where I actually took my wife on our first date.
Oh, wow.
24, 25 years ago. So yeah, that would be my two for folks, because I think it gives them a good taste and feel of the whole community, right, without going everywhere. And then, if they want to go shopping, I'd probably send them up to Dunwoody in that area too.
Oh, the Perimeter Mall,
and
all around.
All around that area. Yeah.
Well,
so
great.
That's it.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Well, Chris, we appreciate you being here.
Sure.
And hope you can come back again when we have another big initiative from the chamber.
Will do.
So if anybody has interest or want more information about the Georgia Chamber, how do they find y'all?
You just go to gachamber.com is the easiest thing to do, and follow us on all the social media platforms out there. But, that's the easiest way.
Great. Thank you.